Everything starts with God. This universe started with God. Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. You and I started with God. He is the one who created you. Everything starts with God. And the Bible starts with God. This gospel message starts with God. Everything starts with God. And God, who is, and the God who is truly God, is the God of the Bible. At the core of each person, there is a desire and a yearning for God. They can deny it and suppress this yearning for Him and live an unfulfilled life. But God has made it so that we all have conscience. A conscience that is moved and pricked and disturbed when it hears the gospel message. Why is the human conscience disturbed when it hears the gospel message? Because it knows the gospel message is true. When people hear that there is a God who created the heavens and earth, their conscience tells them that it is true, that everything couldn't be here by accident. The world and all its complexities couldn't be formed by happenstance. When people hear that God created them, that He formed them, that He designed them in His own image, and that human beings are not animals, and that they are not a mishap of the evolutionary process, their conscience tells them that this is true. When people hear that God who created this universe and the God who created humanity therefore expects His creation to love Him and to obey the laws that He has set in His universe, their conscience tells them that this is true also. But why do people fight with their conscience if they know this is true? The answer is simple. The gospel message reveals to us that we are all guilty. Who wants to hear that they are guilty? That is why people suppress the gospel message, because the gospel message points the finger at you, and me, and tells us that we are all guilty and have fallen short of the laws of this infinite God, who has set requirements for us that we haven't met. And their conscience tells them that all of this is true, and that God requires we love one another because all humans are made in the image of God and are therefore special in the eyes of God. When people hear that God requires we love Him with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our mind, and that the proof of this love is seen. John chapter 14 verse 15, if you love me, keep my commandments. But people do not like what their conscience is telling them, because they know they have not kept His commandments. They know they haven't kept His laws, and they are guilty. And they have offended and disobeyed a God who is eternal, infinite. Therefore they are guilty, but their conscience suppresses the truth. Because if the truth be told, who wants to know that an everlasting God is angry with them? Who wants to know that every one of their actions, thoughts, and deeds will one day be examined? Who wants to know that all their sins will be judged and the punishment for each of them are everlasting? Who wants to know that they will spend eternity in the lake of fire? I have said all of this to come to this point. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 18. For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. There are several salient verses in the scriptures that we often do not pay good attention to, and this passage is one of them. Embedded in its lines are mysteries that have eternal relevance. What 1 Corinthians chapter 1 verse 18 tells us is that there are two groups, those who are perishing and those who are saved. And the Bible gives us a reminder of those two groups through scriptures, and even on Judgment Day, there will be those two groups.
On the day of the Lord, the Bible describes a separation, a division into groups. The Bible describes this in many ways. Here are some of them. Matthew 25:31-46. The two groups are sheep and the goats. When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. Revelation 20, verse 15. The two groups are written and not written, and whosoever was not found written in the book of life. Colossians 1:13. The two groups are the kingdom of darkness and the kingdom of heaven. Who hath delivered us from the power of darkness, and hath translated us into the kingdom of his dear Son. Matthew 13, verses 1-58. The two groups are those who bear fruit, and those who don't. Even so, every good tree bringeth fruit, good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. Matthew 7:17. This is a day in which we cannot avoid. It doesn't matter if you run to the east or to the west. You will stand before him. You will come before his judgment seat. You cannot outrun a God who can speak whole worlds out of nothing. It's nothing to him to raise the dead and to bring them to the judgment seat, that they may speak to him about the way that they've lived and thought and spoken and acted. And God, the great King and the only potentate, guarantees that every evil word will be remembered. Every evil act will be called to account. Every evil thought will be published openly.
But these two groups know the gospel message is true. But one group has decided to be saved by the gospel message of Jesus Christ. Hebrews chapter 4 verse 2 says, For unto us was the gospel preached as well as unto them, but the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in them that heard it. The Bible makes it clear there are only two types of spirits, two types of people, those who are perishing and those who are being saved. What type of spirit do you have? Is your spirit perishing, or has yours been saved by Christ? There is no middle ground. You are his, or you are not his. The Bible makes it clear that there are only two types of spirits, two types of people, those who are perishing and those who are being saved. What type of spirit do you have? Is your spirit perishing, or has yours been saved by Christ? There is no middle ground.